That's actually how I have come to make that recipe. And I didn't expect that that recipe would become the recipe that people would be talking about in the world. I've always discovered it's always the simplest things that you do that actually become a success. So that's the secret formula to coming up with that pistachio kanafa recipe that everyone is now enjoying.
I've seen the offer, I've seen the investors, and when it aired, now I found out that you walked away. What happened there?
I can't continue with the same deal because it is now the true value of my brand.
Welcome to another episode of Meaningful Marketing, Mentoring, Mattering with me, Joseph Alcantara. Today's guest is someone whose name has become synonymous with dessert innovation across the Middle East and beyond. Chef Nouel Catis is the man behind what many call $1 million dessert magic. From leading pastry kitchens at some of the world's most prestigious hotels like Burj Al Arab, Sofitel Fiji, Westin Beijing, and Kempinski, to serving as in-flight chef with Etihad Airways, Noel's journey has been anything but ordinary. He's a culinary mind behind the viral global phenomenon Dubai chocolate, and now the founder of Snaap, a luxury confectionery redefining edible gifting, and the visionary behind the Sweet Life, the region's first build your own dessert concept. His work has earned him multiple awards, a TEDx stage, and even a feature on Shark Tank, where he walked away with three offers. Through CNC Consulting, he's helped shape homegrown F&B brands across the Gulf, and through every pivot, from hotel pastry chef to consultant to entrepreneur, he's shown that creativity and resilience can turn setbacks into sweet success. Noel's story is not just about desserts. It's about reinvention, ownership, and the courage to claim your own narrative. Please welcome to the pod, Chef Noel. Hi, Chef.
Joseph, thank you for inviting me over. It's going to be a fun conversation today for sure.
I am very much honored when you said yes to this invitation. I am a huge fan. Looking at your entire story, watching all the stuff that I see about you on socials, and tasting the chocolate that you have created. But before we dive into that, I want to hear your story based on your own words. What's the meaningful life story of Chef Noel that led him to where he is today and doing what he is doing?
It very much started at home. We are a bunch of foodies at home, and I believe that actually inspired me to delve deeper into the culinary scene because if you're spoiled with good cooking, you become very critical with any kind of food that you put in your mouth, basically. So it was a natural progression, but originally I did want to be in the medical field, but I was scared of blood. So the sight of sugar became more appealing, than the blood. So that's how it started. I started to bake and it became fun. And also I started watching shows on TV, especially the Food Network. And I started idolizing big chefs like Jack Torres. So I then dreamt of, wanting to be one of them in the future. So that's how it progressed. But in university, I took up hotel and restaurant management because taking up a culinary course at that time was really very expensive. So when I graduated, I went into the kitchen and there were a lot of things happening in between for sure, but I really went back into my calling to become a chef. So I joined the hotel I think I was already like 23 or 24 years old. And since then, there was no looking back because I landed in Dubai, which was where I was working for Burj Al Arab. And, when you work in a seven-star, the only seven-star hotel, then you are basically like being hunted by a lot of poachers in the industry because they want you to work for them. And that helped me actually move places. But working in the hotel is not always glitz and glamour. I know it's fun to look at chefs working in hotels with their really shiny like uniform, or like a big team. And also, if you work for five-star hotels, it's like you're wearing jewelry. But that wasn't really the thing that I enjoyed, because when you work in hotels, it's very much more about big numbers, big volumes, let's say like 1,000 people, or serving a huge wedding, a banquet. And that was not for me. So I felt like I could do more by being an artist. And I think, and that's when I decided to take a sabbatical when I was flying for Etihad as an in-flight chef, because I wanted to see the world and maybe find a way back in, but not in the hotel anymore. So after 5 years of flying, that's when I joined or formed my consulting business. So I was doing freelance work in Dubai. It was 2018. And from then, that time, a lot of things again unfolded. Like you said, I switched pacing. I went into owning my own business, and then later on becoming a brand. So that's how my journey actually is as of now. The history is yet being continuously written, as I would say it.
I love the as of now that you've mentioned there because it means that the journey is continuing, even if you have that beautiful vision and you have the right here, right now, you're open to possible opportunities and changes in the future, which is very inspiring. And I think it's
Mm,
also very purposeful of you to put that in practice because going back to your story, when you talked about starting the love for culinary arts at a very young age, and having that family that's centered around food, and then
mhm.
eventually having that dream of going into medicine, but eventually realizing that that is not for you. That is an initial pivot already. And then being an employee in a seven
Yeah,
star hotel and then shifting to something else again, that's also a big, bold move, but following what you think is right for you. When
right.
you were
Yeah.
doing those pivots in your life or in that journey, what triggered you to jump onto the next stage? And then second is what courage have you had inside yourself? Because changing from one uh, place in your life to the other sometimes is very scary. It's so difficult to eventually remove that comfort blanket that you have into something that you haven't tried before. So what allowed you to muster that up and moving on to the next stage?
For the first question, it's really more about when there's something that you want to do, but you're scared doing it, but you need to do it anyway, because it's always said that, if it doesn't kill you, it should make you stronger. So that's what my mindset was whenever I jump into something that is uncharted, I would say, in my life. So what I did for the first part was really just to try, because anyway, it doesn't, it's just going to show me a new path, and of course learning new things along the way. So I said I should jump in. And for the second part, it's really like you said, mastering all the courage. And I've always been a self-starter, so I think that's one of the things that is kind of shielding me away from, the noise outside, where people will tend to judge you for whatever you're deciding to do. So I never minded whatever kind of voices that would probably be starting to prop up, when you make that decision. So that's the kind of courage I think that I have come up or mustered, because I just had to do it, and not because I need to please everyone, but I just needed to prove to myself that I can actually do it.
Love that. Silencing the noise and building your mindset as a self-starter is a very mature way, especially I think in your industry that sometimes is very competitive and also very emotional. But I think to your point, if you have that courage, you have that focus to silence the noise, and you have that commitment of being a self-starter, then it will go a long, long way. And that is a proof point of now I understand it hearing from you, which I think I saw that when you applied what you know, what you've envisioned on the very viral and global phenomenon Dubai chocolate. I know that a lot of people are very much intrigued by it. And I'll be honest with you, I know that it is really a phenomenon because I'm here in Boston when the
Mhm.
shops of chocolates, of confectionery had Dubai chocolate in them. And to my surprise, even Shake Shack has their drink that seemed like a Dubai chocolate. So I
Yeah,
personally did my
familiar.
research, and to my positive surprise, I was like, oh my God, the man behind it is a Filipino and is really truly from Dubai. So take us back to that journey, how you've pioneered such a self-starter and original phenomenon, how that pivot in flavor and presentation became a global phenomenon, and also how you navigated it when the credit didn't land in your lap.
It's it's good that you asked this question because in the beginning I wasn't actually sure what kind of path I should be taking as a chef because there's a lot of famous chefs already, and how do you actually rise up to this already community of really popular chefs, and also add to that a layer that being Filipino, we're not really yet known as kind of a powerhouse in terms of providing talents from the pastry department, because it's always the French who or the Germans who always are winning the game because of the discipline, because it's when they were young, they were already born to getting exposed to fine pastries, the technique. So it's for them it's natural, but for us we have a different, I would say, upbringing. We are exposed to our own native, like delicacies, our different disciplines. So that's adds another layer. So to be able to actually say or define yourself as a particular chef of discipline, it was tough until I found out that I should call myself as a heritage pastry chef. And reason being
Mm,
because I did a lot of digging, and every successful chef always says that when they create a dish, it's always about childhood memories, about connection, tradition. And I said nobody yet has called themselves as a heritage pastry chef, so I might as well take that space and own it. And it was also during the time when I was writing my first book, and I already decided that this is the path that I should be going for. And because of that term heritage, that's when I started to embrace the Arabic culture, and also
mm,
getting exposed to a lot of Arabic, cuisines, desserts, having traveled the world. When I travel to any kind of country that signifies or uses a lot of Arabic um, ingredients, or like for example, if I travel to the north of Africa, you have there, the Morocco, you have Algeria, and so on and so forth. So I was able to amass all of those wealth of information about the heritage of the Middle East, and that was actually the starting point of my career, because that's when the Middle East has recognized me being somebody who looks at their traditions, their cuisine in a really different way, because I'm an outsider. So that kind of
mm,
added a bonus to their already existing, classical dishes. Since if you have somebody with a different pair of lens, it's really, you're adding value to it, basically, because you are adding your own experience to their own culture, and then you come up with a reimagined version of
mm.
their existing nostalgia. So that led me to already develop flavors that have a lot of Middle Eastern flair, but adding my own spin. Maybe it could be a French spin, Filipino, or a Western, but there's always a spin that makes it relevant again to the new generation. So that became my formula. And that's actually how I have come to make that recipe. And I did actually expect that that recipe would become the recipe that people would be talking about in the world. So, like what I've always discovered, it's always the simplest things that you do that actually become a success, because it's not complicated, it's easily understandable, and it's very approachable. So that's the secret formula to coming up with that pistachio kunafa recipe that everyone is now enjoying.
Love that. Love the heritage angle. Love the outside in looking into another culture that's different from yours. that you're adding value to. And yeah, you're right. I mean, at the end of it, I lived in Dubai for a good 9 years, and for me, a kanafa is a kanafa. I
Exactly.
mean, it's very simple. However, when you repackage it or put your spin to it and put it in a different lens within the context of it becoming a chocolate and package it that way, it became a hit. And I think the beauty
Exactly.
of it, honestly, Chef, that I really appreciated more is that you brought it to the world. I think it became not commoditized, but it became a household name of some sort
Correct.
because, as I
Like a
was saying,
Nutella, like Kinder Bueno, the
correct.
same.
I love that. And I think now that, so you started with that concoction, with that
Hmm.
idea, you brought it to life, but now you created your own brand, Snap. I want to talk
Yes.
about that because I do understand that Dubai chocolate is something that's generic. Okay. It's not a brand because everyone can do their Dubai chocolate. And I'll be honest, I shop all the brands here that's available on Amazon and even Walmart and the Asian stores here.
Yeah,
And there are distinct differences across different brands, right? But on
that's
your
correct.
own brand, Snap, what's the inspiration
Mm.
behind this pivot that you have to create your own branded product? And what sets it apart from the countless dessert labels in the region or in the world that distinctly makes Snap different from the others?
So the Snap wasn't actually a planned brand that I would be launching last year in October because chocolate was actually something that I was not planning to do, in the short term. It was something that I would probably do later on in my career, in my business. But since Dubai chocolate became what it was, and when it became popular, I was conflicted on how I should share my own story about, how I was part of the whole journey of it. And when it became really big and people were not, they were celebrating, of course, the success of it until, my name was dropped in the media that I was actually helping out in formulating the recipe. The lens have shifted and the media turned to me and asked me a lot of questions about the thought process because if there's anyone who could actually share how it came to life, a chef would be able to best explain it, especially the chef who originally developed the recipe, right? So that has kind of created a I would say, an uproar in the community saying you should be front and center. You should do something about it because if there's anyone who can continue the innovation, it would be you because you innovated the recipe, and that's when because of the clamor for having my own brand so that they can support and continue to support my journey. And that's when Snap actually happened in October last year. And the vision of Snap back then was just there were a lot of demand for Dubai chocolate, and it's just like there are too many people who want it, but the supply was so limited, and I could help out in filling the gap. So I thought by doing that, that was it. But when we launched Snap, we sold out like in 3 days, and again we made a new batch, double the quantity. Again, it sold out, and also the media started to went into a frenzy, like interviews and getting excited more, like what's next, what's next, because they always say, you may just be a one night wonder if you do only one flavor. So I created other flavors, and I actually launched. First was like salted caramel, then I did something that has a strawberry. But they said if there's another flavor that represents you as a Filipino, it should be ube. And that's when I launched the ube baklava because I love ube. And also it's a way of like giving back, to my own, to our own heritage, that we need to also highlight our own heritage in this kind of global phenomenon. And that's when eventually it became Manila chocolate. But Snap is really different because now what we have noticed is everyone knows Dubai chocolate. And should we stop there in our storytelling? And I said, Snap can be a vehicle in curating city themed chocolates because now it has become a thing. So now Snap is designed as a brand that celebrates every city in the world. And since there are so many cities that we can cover, we can have different stories or different layers of stories for every city. And Dubai is a mix of so many different nationalities. So it's just right that we celebrate every city of every resident. So we're representing everybody here in Dubai and beyond. And when we do that, we will add a bit of an Arabic spin in every city so that when somebody, an expat, goes back to his home country, whether for good or just for a vacation, he will bring a piece of that chocolate and letting the family or relatives enjoy what life was like when he was in the UAE because it has the touch of a layer of Arabic. So it's like bringing home a bit of Arabic in you when you're on holiday or whether you're going back for good. So now we call Snap as a city chocolate.
I'm having chills, Chef, because that is such a beautiful vision. And I think it's a nod across all the experiences that you've had, your heritage, your background, paying tribute to the successes that you've had. And I can already imagine how the concept will be embraced by everyone because I think the global citizens right now can really very much relate to that story and having a piece of yourself and the places where you've lived or you've visited and having that reminiscent to what you will be bringing along is something that's going
Exactly.
to be a big hit, I would have to say.
Yeah,
But I think at the back of it as well, what really struck me the most to your story is, and I'm a firm believer that successful brands are successful because of the why and the people behind them.
right.
Yes, the product may be great, the brand may be great, but people buy a certain product or buy or patronize a brand because of the people behind the brand. I
Exactly.
love the story of when people started asking you or the media uproar asking you, what are you going to do next? You should be front and center because at the end of the day, you're like for me, you're like the Steve Jobs of this
Yeah,
Apple, if you can put it that way, right? And people buy Apple because of the story of Steve Jobs. We know the
exactly.
philosophy, we know the values, and I think that was the reason why you are in your place right now and people rallied behind you, which I think is such a beautiful phenomenon and story. Which led me to that question about I witnessed your participation at Shark Tank. I've seen the offer, I've seen, the investors, and then when it aired, I found out eventually that you walked away and pivoted and not take the offer, right?
Correct.
Can you tell us more about that and that's also another pivot in your ongoing journey? How did that come about and what happened there?
I think for me, the 2 million worth of win that I got there was actually their advice when they said I should be the brand and I should stop doing it for other brands or other people. And I took it, to heart. And when I left that stage, I actually immediately actually shifted to be my own brand. And when I shifted, it created quite a huge change in my business where my value became way higher than I thought I was in the beginning or when I stepped on that stage. And when I met again with the investors, the sharks, I just told them like I can't continue with the same deal. I have to go back to the original pitch, which was 20% because it is now the true value of my brand. Like, it's already proven. But unfortunately, they said what was agreed on the show should be the one that I should stick to. And if I don't say no, I would be kidding myself. So I said I have to really own up and be accountable. And also, it's kind of like telling yourself like no is also a powerful thing to say. And I'm always used to saying yes, but no was the most difficult thing to do, but also the right thing to do.
I love that story of self-worth and stepping up for yourself and having that self-assurance that this is my valuation, this is what I'm worth,
Exactly.
which I think is very uncommon for Filipinos. Let's just be very honest about it. And I think this is something that's really very inspiring because we grew in a culture where we're not very confrontational. We always feel that Westerners are better than
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
We always feel a bit shy to be assertive because we don't want to
Correct.
offend others. But how did the shift in your perception, in the way you carry yourself, in the way you roll out your business and ideas to
Mm.
directly compete in the world stage. I do understand that definitely the Filipino humility in you is still there, but how do you balance this in these situations where you think I should be in this place, I should fight for what I know is right for myself? How do you navigate those situations?
To be honest with you, Joseph, it's a continuous process because, like you said, if you were raised in a Filipino household and very much distinctly Filipino, like you said, very hospitable. Always, you are always second because, your, let's say, people you adore or people who are leading businesses should be first. It takes a lot of actually self-awareness for you to be mindful of your actions and decisions when you have to make sure that you are at par with everybody. So it all really starts with having the right mindset. And I think I have overcome. I actually has always been a shy person and very humble and always shying away from the camera. And I just like to be in the dark and the shadows. But I realized one thing is that I do enjoy talking in front of the camera because I like to share my story and inspire. I do love interacting with people because that's the way for them to get to know me more. And thirdly is I like you said, I'm also raising our flag in a way that in the modern times we need to show up to them that we're not a country that only supplies, let's say, domestic workers, supplying for the medical field. We have a lot of creative artists. We have a lot of fashion designers. We have so many people who are actually excelling in every field possible. It's just because, we haven't really come out of our shell. And I'd like to be part of that movement where we are pushing boundaries. I know it's a long work, it's always a work in progress for me, but at least I may see it that way, but probably for others, I have gone really way beyond what every like Filipino would probably be dreaming up to do. But I had to keep pushing because I still have a lot of things to do, and I think that kind of self-awareness is giving me the courage to still continue to push the boundaries.
That is such a beautiful example to set for people, especially for the underdogs, for the people who are thinking that I am much less than others, for them to
Yes,
realize that no, we have to find that courage within ourselves and to raise the flag of where we are originally from and don't not really shy away from
exactly.
thinking that, we can all do it. And because you've gone a long way with all the peaks and troughs of your life in your career pivots and your changes on the paths that you have taken. So looking at those entrepreneurs, for example, those startups or those newbies in the field where they are, because I'm sure that in your consultancy work, there are a lot of people that you're encountering to be in those situations. How do you help those people or those other brands pivot when they are stuck? What would be your key notable advice or actionable points or suggestions to give them, especially for those who are scared to reinvent themselves or try
Right.
other things and follow their passion?
Well, I always tell them like, and I always post this on my social media that if something is not happening for you, it means you're not denied, but you're just being redirected. And so there's a reason because there's a bigger thing waiting for you. So don't keep forcing yourself to still do the same thing because you've been denied many times. So, but sometimes, it's also about perseverance when you keep doing what you're doing and then you finally get it. This generation is different now. Like you need to be flexible, you need to be agile, and if you keep getting stuck in the same scenario, I think you will be overrun by those who are always dreaming of doing what you intend to do. So you'll be left behind. So rather than to always like say it's good to try once, twice, thrice, but the fourth time you should probably say I am being redirected and I should try the other direction. And that's what I always tell them. And also, secondly, you should not make a decision to prove to others what you're capable of, but actually, there's nothing for you to prove. You just need to, actually, it's all about you. You are your own enemy as well as much as you are your own best friend. Because if you are always fighting against something just to please people, or which, is kind of a nature for us as Filipinos, we like to please others. what happens is you are actually denying your own success because there are other things that you can bring to the table, but you don't see it because you're only looking at the people around me instead of looking deep inside. That's why self-awareness is very important. And that's what I always tell them, like, don't look at the failures, but look at all the things you could do with what you have. And I don't believe in regrets as well. I don't have any regrets in my life, whether I've gone through in a stage where I failed in something. For me, it's part of the journey. It's part of your story, part of being a human. So you should just embrace that. And I think that's a powerful thing to master. And that's what I always share to everyone. Like the only demon in in the equation is yourself. If you believe that you already failed, then you failed. So that is a very important thing. You have to really be self-aware for you to overcome challenges in life.
That's very important and inspiring, Chef, because yeah, you're right. Especially in the world today where the comparison across everything that we see, especially in social media or the successes of people around us, it's like a joy stealer and a confidence wrecker of,
Exactly.
of people when it comes to them wanting to follow their path because of the situations and the people that they see around them. So I think that's a beautiful advice. You've mentioned about not looking at failure as failure. Suddenly I realized that I want to ask you this question. Like, what is your favorite failure that you thought was a failure that eventually led you to realize now, looking back, that it wasn't a failure, but it was a redirection, and you are now happy that it happened?
Well, there are actually two stages. When I was working in hotels, the first failure that I thought was really like a dead end for me was when, because I work at the Burj Al Arab and people look highly, about everything about what you do. They look up to you. And I think that kind of looking up to you is also kind of a false kind of like idolatry for a person because you're putting a lot of pressure on somebody and I thought that time that I was already that good, that great. But when I was in a situation where I was surrounded by really highly competitive people, I realized I had a lot of things missing in me and yes, it was a failure in a sense, but it also gave me a boost to actually study. So after that, I took a bit of time off from my hotel stint and I studied in New York because I realized I needed to do something about it. Again, like I've been telling you, like when I see something that's missing, I always try to fill in the gap. And because you do it for yourself, not for others. And that's how I gained more confidence. Then I went back into the hotel industry and I realized that now I'm stronger than before. And the second thing that I thought I failed at was about taking accountability about the Dubai chocolate thing. I decided to just
Mm,
stay quiet or probably not say much about it, but people were like cheering and they were saying like, if you don't take accountability, you will always stay where you are in the dark, in the shadows. So again, what I did, I stepped up. I own my own brand, Snap, and also now I'm openly talking about my involvement in the journey, in the history, because that's the rightful thing to say. If you don't say it, nobody would know, and you're not doing yourself a favor.
those two examples or case studies, I would have to say, were very powerful. And I'm sure that when you were there in those situations, you're feeling different. It might be
Exactly.
anxiety. It might be, am I doing the right thing? Will I fail again? Will this cause trouble? But I think where that led you is also a beautiful example of how we can take that accountability and that courage to also understand that we would have to do it because otherwise we won't be able to achieve the dreams and aspirations that we will eventually have, right?
100%.
Another question, Chef, would be on Snap. You talk about Snap and you talk about city chocolates.
Hmm.
I love the concept. I love how you are pulling together all these creative ideas and bringing that into a branded product that's uniquely yours, but also unique for others to eventually appreciate and fall in love with. What is the bigger vision there? Will you be conquering the world? Will you I be seeing you here in the US and eventually having Boston chocolate or New York chocolate as well? What's the dream? What's the long-term goal there?
The long-term goal is actually to, we always say, while everyone is talking about your your creativity, your success, you should continue to use that platform to actually continue your journey so that you can reach, your voice reaches to the farthest corner of the globe and positively influence a lot of people to join, forces with you in terms of being innovative, being trend setting, being a creative. So that's really really important. So the vision of Snap is actually apart from celebrating cities, it's also about using the recipe of the chocolate as a way of uniting people by like conducting maybe a master class or doing kind of a charity led kind of projects. So it should be. I want to use the brand as a vehicle in touching people's lives in creating a kind of that I would say trying to bridge gaps and also uniting the different. I know this is too much to say, but if you can unite the world through flavors, why not? And this could really snowball into many things. But the essence of it is I'm using this as a vehicle to really reach the different cities in this world and let them join forces with you and apart from educating them about maybe about how to be a really better entrepreneur, but it's also letting them be inspired so they can also be like you, not necessarily as a chef, but as a creative, because I think every one of us has this creativity and if done or if someone is just inspiring you to push forward your creativity, I think you can do wonders. So I always call myself first as an artist, and then the next is chef because the being an artist you can do many things, but I became a chef because this is my language to actually showcase what artistry is like through recipes.
That is such a meaningful vision, Chef, I would have to say. And I love the idea that who would have thought that a simple chocolate can potentially unify people in different places and stages, which I agree is possible because food is a universal language. We might be talking in different ways, but
Exactly.
most people, generally speaking, love anything that's sweet, right? So I think you being at the forefront of using that as a vehicle to unify people, to appreciate different cultures, and to also meaningfully bring that to life in different parts of the world is such a beautiful and I would have to say impactful existential mission that you are
Exactly.
taking. So I'll definitely be part of those people who will be cheering you
Thank you.
on because I believe in that vision. And so my last question, since we're talking about the meaningfulness of what your next
Yes.
stage would be, you are living such a meaningful life, but what is the meaning of a meaningful life to you today? Do you bring, and how do you bring that to life every single morning that you wake up?
For me, it's really all about leaving a legacy behind. I was born to parents who are my mom, she was a teacher, my father was an architect, and there's a lot of humility in the family. And for me, the really important thing is to leave a legacy that future generations can use as a stepping stone for them or to get inspiration from. And I think that's the best thing you can leave behind, like reading through a history book, and then you find your own story being part of that because it's one of the significant stories in history. And that's really has been one of the things that keeps me going when I wake up, knowing that I have this kind of mission and even a responsibility to make sure that I leave something, a seed behind or a basket of seeds so that others can use them. And, once the seed becomes a tree or something, they can probably use it for something else, and that would be beneficial. And the new generation will also step up and also leave their own legacy. So it's really more about leaving legacies behind.
Chef Noel, you have left a legacy already, and I think you are continuously leaving those legacies. We will continue to cheer you on. I am so honored and grateful and happy for this conversation. Before we end, I'd want to give the floor to you for those people who would want to, get into your consultation business or follow you on socials or follow your products or buy them. The floor is yours. Let them know where to get them.
So yeah, I would like to invite all the viewers, if you really want to continuously follow my journey and be part of it, who knows, I'll maybe visiting your area. anytime soon in the near future, you can follow me through my handle on Instagram. I'm always on Instagram. It's at Chef Noel. The thing is, my Noel has a U in the middle between O and the E, so that's what makes it distinct. And from there, you will find all my other brands, which is Snaap, the Sweet Life, and more brands to follow. I would say there are two more brands that I yet have to launch, and I'm really excited so that you can see the journey and perhaps that could be something that may be of interest in terms of getting inspiration from, and that's what I've been always wanting to contribute.
Thank you so much, Chef Noel. It has been such a sweet and $1 million dessert conversation. I really appreciate it and learned so much from you. Thank you so much. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. And I continue to wish you all the best in your
Thank you,
succeeding journey
Joseph.
so that you will be able to leave beautiful legacies. Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.